ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरि ओम। Readings from Meditation and Spiritual Life, Chapter 18, The Path of Yoga-Vedanta Synthesis. Our next point is how to purify our minds. The trouble is that our soul longs for infinite joy, infinite love, infinite bliss. But we try to find that in the finite, and if we don't succeed, we feel frustrated. The Guru said, if you want real joy, unbounded joy, you have to reach the infinite. So, Narada's next question was, what is meant by the term the infinite? It is that all-pervading reality, which is everywhere, above, below, to the right, and to the left. Attaining to that, you don't see or hear or know anything else. It is infinite consciousness. But how to get to it? What prevents us from attaining to the infinite forthwith? Here the great ancient teacher Sanat Kumara gives us in a nutshell the whole gist of spiritual discipline. When Ahara, that is the food we take, is pure, our mind becomes pure. And when the mind becomes pure, our memory becomes steady. That is, we remember our spiritual nature and gradually become established in spiritual consciousness. This destroys the knots of the heart and leads to emancipation. When we have realized the infinite spirit, we are freed from all bondage and sorrow. When we realize that we are one with the infinite spirit, all our problems of life and death are solved. Let us now try to understand the meaning of the word Ahara. The word Ahara means what we take in. Does it mean only food? Pure sattvic food? Pure vegetarian food? How far does this help? It helps a little. But unless you know how to purify the mind, nothing much happens. There are plenty of wicked people who are vegetarians. What type of vegetarians are they? Lord bless them. If you feed a poisonous snake with pure milk, it will only manufacture poison. So, it is not enough to fill our bellies with pure food. Our poisonous nature is to be discarded. Therefore, Sankara observes while commenting on the above passage. Ahara is that which is taken in, bhaj, the experience of sound, etc., which are taken in for the experience of the agent. And when this cognition of objects is purified, that is, when the cognition of objects becomes free from all taint of aversion, attachment, or delusion, then of one having such cognition, the inner nature becomes pure. Some of you might have seen the 3 Japanese monkeys. These are 3 monkey dolls. One monkey is closing both the ears, another both the eyes, and the third the mouth. During my stay in Europe, I came across a stone carving on the bank of a lake in Switzerland. There were also the 3 monkeys, but with this difference. One had only one eye closed, another had only one ear closed, and third had half the mouth closed. I was taken aback for a moment. Then in a flash I understood the meaning. Don't see what is bad, but see what is good. Don't hear what is bad, but hear what is good. Don't speak what is bad, but speak what is good. First I thought it was an original idea. Then my mind turned to the famous Vedic prayer. O gods, may we hear with our ears what is auspicious. O ye adorable ones, may we see with our eyes what is auspicious. May we sing praises to ye, and may we enjoy with strong limbs and body the life allotted us by the gods. Now we have to practice all this, and when you have done that for some time, your mind becomes pure to some extent. Make the best use of your vocal organ. You make bad use of it by talking rubbish. Don't do it. Take the name of the Lord, any name that appeals to you. Meditate on any aspect of the Lord that appeals to you with an amount of devotion. After some time, you will find that your mind is becoming pure. Repetition of the divine name and visualization of the divine form uplift you. Later on, you may get a glimpse of your Ishtadevata and a glimpse of even the universal spirit. Our next point is the 8 steps of yoga. How to begin? Patanjali, the great teacher of yoga, has placed before us a spiritual ladder with 8 steps that takes us to perfection. The first step, called yama, means the observance of the 5 virtues, that is ahimsa, non-violence, satya, truth, asteya, non-stealing, brahmacharya, continence, and aparigraha, non-dependence on others, charity. Then comes niyama, or the 5 rules of conduct. First of these is saucha, purity of body and mind. Then santasa, contentment, has to be developed. If one is always grumbling and complaining, how can one with such a mind ever do anything successful either in this world or in the world of the spirit? We must adjust ourselves to the things in this world and try to improve ourselves. The third rule is tapas. There should be an amount of austerity in life. Without rigor in spiritual practice, each generation is becoming softer than the previous one. Nothing can be achieved by these soft people. The fourth rule is swadhyaya, that is self-study. We study books, but how much of it enters our mind? We hear a lecture and say it was wonderful, but if asked, what did you hear? We would not be able to repeat anything. The words, as it were, enter through one ear and pass out through the other. Ideas are not retained. Swadhyaya means reflecting on what you study and making it a part of your own. The Upanishad tells you, Shrotavyaha, first you hear or read, then Mantavyaha, you have to reflect on what you have heard or read. That is the way. Only when we are to some extent established in the moral path do we begin to get benefit out of spiritual disciplines. The fifth rule is Ishvara Pranidhana, or self-surrender to God. Surrender your whole body, mind and soul to Him. The third step of the spiritual ladder, according to Patanjali, is asana. You may sit like a statue for many hours. What do you get? Pretty nothing. At least there should be spiritual aspiration. Then your sitting posture helps you in your spiritual practice. The fourth step or discipline is pranayama. In the practice of pranayama, you stop your breath. What do you gain? If it is merely a physical phenomenon, then a football bladder must be a great yogi. What do you get by retention of breath? Nothing by itself. But when the mind is greatly disciplined, when the mind is in a spiritual mood, pranayama helps one to rise to a higher plane of consciousness. The fifth step, called Pratyahara, is detachment. From everything the mind is to be detached. When you are attending to some work, you banish all other thoughts and give your mind to that particular work. If you fail to practice detachment, you invite orich. When you go to sleep and think of too many things, you don't get sleep. You suffer from insomnia and fall ill. Similarly, if you wish to meditate, you should detach your mind as much as you can from the things of the world, even from the pictures, the thoughts and feelings that arise within you. But detachment should not create a vacuum in your mind. A vacant mind will fall asleep. For many people, meditation is an invitation to sleep. Be wide awake. Use your willpower a little more. Take the name of the Lord while you meditate. Then there would not be any fear of falling asleep. Instead, the mind will rise to a higher plane. We now come to the sixth step or discipline, dharana. This means fixing your mind for some time on some divine theme or on a holy word or on a holy blissful form in a particular center of consciousness. You have to feel your center of consciousness first and then concentrate your mind there. Dhyana, maintaining a continuous flow of a single thought about the divine, is the seventh step. Concentration here is deeper and lasts longer. You remain absorbed in divine consciousness, and that leads to the highest state, samadhi, or the superconscious state. Dhyana is mystic worship, an attempt to worship God in spirit and in truth. Before we proceed further, let us ask ourselves an important question. We identify ourselves with the body and think that we are men and women. We worship a certain deity, male or female. We begin our spiritual life that way and also end in that way. But what do we gain? At the very beginning of our spiritual life, it is essential on our part to be conscious of what we are doing. In what way is worship connected to our life? Next point is worship of God. What do we mean by worship of God? What is our conception of God? In Europe, a devotee said to me, Swami, please never utter the word God. It calls up our childhood image of someone beyond the clouds in the heaven. If I regard to punish those who break his laws. I cannot think of that, I said. All right, use the word Ishvara. I use the word Brahman. If we worship God, we must feel our nearness to Him. We usually think of Him as the creator, protector, and destroyer. He takes things back to Himself, which we call destroying, but we should remember that He is much more than all that. He is the soul of our souls, nearer than the nearest, dearer than the dearest. But in order to realize this truth, we should first of all know that we are souls. We should know that we are the Atman, different from the mind, the ego, the senses, and the body. Without knowing that we are souls, parts of an infinite spirit, we cannot know God, who is the soul of all souls, the Supreme Spirit. He comes to us as Father and Mother. He comes to us as the Guru, and He comes to us also as our Ishtadevata, the deity chosen for worship. According to dualistic Vedanta, and most of us should start as dualists, the soul and the oversoul, the Atman and the Paramatman, are ever distinct but ever connected. We should begin with the knowledge of the soul's eternal relationship with the eternal God. They are ever in union, yet owing to the impurity of our mind, we become attached to the Lord's creation, but not to Him. A great Western psychologist, seeing the ways of ordinary religious people, once remarked, people do not want God, they only want to use God. They want to pray to God so that He may fulfill all their desires. And if He does not grant their prayers, some become skeptical and say, oh, God does not exist. And even if He exists, He is deep, He is blind, He does not respond. That kind of childish conception is no good. You want only the good God who always showers on you all that you ask for, as if He has no other task but to grant you boons. Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna worshipped the Supreme Spirit first in the form of Kali, a representation of the cosmic power. The image of Kali is symbolic but highly suggestive. With one hand she is creating, with another hand she is protecting, with the third hand she is destroying, and with the fourth she is holding a decapitated head. This is only a concrete representation of what the Upanishads speak of the nature of Brahman. A son asked his father, "Master, tell me about Brahman." And the father replied, "Realize that out of which all things come into being, by which all things live, and unto which all things go back. That is Brahman." In our Bhakti scriptures, we call Brahman by various names like Kali or Narayana or Shiva. In Vedanta, we call it Ishvara or Sat Chit Ananda, infinite existence, consciousness, bliss. He dwells in our souls as the soul of our souls. Again, we all dwell in Him. We must feel it, at least His nearness. If we cannot feel His nearness, we should try to develop the consciousness that He is nearer than the nearest, dearer than the dearest. As I have already said, for all this we need to have a correct conception of God, but God is too vast for our conception. I give an illustration. We are like small bubbles. The ocean is too big even for our conception. So what should we do? We find some mighty waves. Let us move towards them, attach ourselves to them, and through them, in course of time, we get an idea of the ocean itself. Similarly, we start our spiritual journey with one such mountain-like wave, our Ishtadevata. We worship him, pray to him, and through all this we come to have a higher consciousness and a broader conception of reality. The Ishtadevata tells us, "Look here, I may be a mighty wave, you may be a small bubble, but all of us have got the infinite ocean behind us. When the proper time comes, He reveals to us the highest truth. He reveals that He is none other than the infinite Spirit." Our next point is Japa and meditation. We cannot realize the infinite Spirit all at once. We must begin from where we are and follow a path that will ultimately enable us to reach that. Spiritual life is like mountain climbing. You have to proceed higher and higher, slowly and carefully. Swami Brahmananda says, "Take the illustration of a man standing in the courtyard of a house. He wants to reach the roof, but instead of climbing the staircase step by step, he permits himself to be thrown up bodily. What happens? He is seriously hurt. So it is with spiritual life. Don't expect to become a realized soul overnight. Begin with simpler things. Japa, repetition of the divine name, is a most efficacious first step. But japa is not to be done parrot-like. As you repeat the divine name, do the artha bhavana. What is artha bhavana? Dwelling on the meaning. What is the meaning of the mantra? You find that as you progress in spiritual life, you understand the deeper and deeper meaning of the mantra. First of all, let us think of the luminous, blissful form of the Ishtadevata. Then think of him as an embodiment of infinite purity, knowledge, devotion, compassion, love, and bliss. Then think that he is no other than the Paramatman, the all-pervading Spirit dwelling in all beings. We talk of dhyana or meditation. You say, "I am meditating." What are you meditating on? Going on brooding over something or other. That is not what is implied by that word. Dhyana is the continuous flow of thought towards a higher spiritual ideal in a higher spiritual center of consciousness. When you think of the Lord, you become absorbed in the divine thought. But this absorption will not come all of a sudden. Japa is a step towards that. Repeat the divine name, thinking of Him. Then the mind becomes a little calm, and even the sound drops off. As you thus go on thinking of him, the Ishtadevata becomes more and more real than the things of the world. Naturally, the mind gets absorbed in him, and you gradually get a taste of the divine presence, love, and bliss. God may come to us as the Ishtadevata, as the Supreme Spirit, as Sat Chit Ananda, that is infinite existence, consciousness, bliss. All this will happen if we undergo regular spiritual practice. In the beginning, it is good to have the support of a picture of your Ishtadevata. Gaze at the picture, concentrate on the picture, but it is much better to install the picture, the holy form, in your inner world. Then you do not have to depend on anything outside. Whenever you want, you can look within where your Ishtadevata is seated and pray to him, repeat his name, meditate on him. First, it may be on his form, then on his attributes, next on his infinite Sarupa or nature. That is how one is to progress in meditation. We are asked to meditate on the lotus of the heart. Where is this heart? Is it the physiological heart? We cannot do anything there. What is meant is the center of our inner consciousness that is felt in the region of the heart. It is the consciousness of our soul that permeates our body and mind. It is the consciousness of the Atman, which is none different from the consciousness of the Paramatman. It may be compared to space as it is contentless, hence it is called Chidakasa. We have to meditate in this Chidakasa. We have to think of ourselves as the devotee and think of the Ishtadevata as the manifestation of the Paramatman. Swami Brahmananda used to tell us, try to meditate within the shrine of your own heart. What this shrine is will be revealed to you as you continue the practice. That is only true. Spiritual discipline is necessary in order to know what is meant by Chidakasa or heart. At first you may think that it is like the Mahakasa, external space. Later on, you may think of it as the cosmomental world. The real heart or the Chidakasa is in the realm of pure consciousness. There the soul, the unit of consciousness, is eternally united with the infinite spirit. You have to meditate on the Ishtadevata in that space in the heart. Let us go back again to the yoga aphorism of Patanjali already referred to, wherein he tells us how to do japa by which repeat the word, thinking of the meaning, the content, the connotation of the word. What happens if we do that? Patanjali says, obstacles are removed and a new spiritual consciousness awakens. With the help of japa and simple dhyana, obstacles are removed. How does this happen? We can explain it this way. We are always creating worries and anxieties, always creating evil thoughts. These evil thoughts disturb our mind and sicken our body. The more we think of holy thoughts, the more we repeat the holy word, and the more we meditate on the blissful form of the Lord, the more the mind is set in abundant harmony. Illnesses self-created drop off. When harmony is established in the mind, this harmony reflects itself outwardly on the body. So mental health and to some extent physical health improve with the repetition of the divine name, and we come to know its power. With the power of meditating on the holy form, a new spiritual consciousness that was lying hidden, that was potential, manifests itself. Then we discover that we are not just these bodies but our souls, and that the Ishtadevata is no other than the Paramatman, the source of supreme peace, supreme bliss, supreme love. Such is the power of the divine name. Next point is, spiritual life is a life of service. We have already discussed 7 steps of yoga. What is the 8th step? According to Patanjali, the 8th step is samadhi, in which you realize the Paramatman, the source of supreme spiritual bliss. Sri Ramakrishna speaks about three types of ananda or happiness. The first one is Visayananda, that is the happiness that comes to us through the contact of the senses with the sense objects. The second is Bhajanananda, the joy that comes to us through bhajana, literally worship, through japa, through dhyana, and then comes finally Brahmananda, the supreme bliss that accrues from the realization of the infinite spirit in samadhi. Brahmananda is difficult to get. It is the culmination of hard struggle, the attainment of divine grace. But even before we get that, we can enjoy the bliss of worship. In spiritual life, let us have as much bhajanananda as we can. It is within the reach of all of us. The ananda that comes to us through japa, through dhyana on the blissful form of the Lord. Let us share this joy with our fellow spiritual seekers. That is why, when devotees with such a spiritual outlook get together, they repeat the Lord's name, sing His glory. At least, for the time being, they forget the troubles of the world. The mind is transported to a higher plane, something of the ananda of the Supreme Being, something of the peace of the Supreme Spirit comes into their soul. But as I said, one should not stop with that. Our great teacher used to tell us, as you advance, you should also help others to advance. One who is illumined alone can be the real teacher. But in order to be of service to others, one need not be at the beginning fully illumined. I may be a student of a senior class, and when teachers are lacking, I can teach one of the lower classes. I can be of service to those who are in a lower class. Let us not wait for the fullest illumination. At every stage, it is possible for us to be of some service to our fellow beings. The religion that we learnt at the feet of the great disciples of Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna has taught us not to be egocentric, but to be dedicated to the service of God dwelling in all. Some words of Swami Yatiswarananda always come to my mind. First, let us be gods, and then help others to be gods. What did Swamiji mean by this? Each one of us should lead his life in such a way that he not only attains spiritual realization and is freed from all bonds, but also is able to promote the welfare of others. In the innermost core of our being, we have to realize the Godhead. Then we have to experience Him as manifest in all beings. Swamiji himself had this integral vision, and this realization of his is the inspiration and basis for the various forms of service of the Ramakrishna movement: medical service, educational service, preaching and publication. The ideal is to serve the divine in others. Just as we ourselves try to be free, we should also try to help others to be free. This is the integral path, the path of synthesis, which we are all trying to put into practice. It contains all the four yogas: karma, dhyana, bhakti, and jnana. The highest ideal, as Swami Vivekananda has said, is this: first, let us ourselves be gods, and then help others to be gods. If we advance to some extent, we can help others also to advance to some extent. That is how we have to put into practice Swamiji's great ideal, Atmana Mokshartham Jagat Hitaya Cha, to work for our own illumination and spiritual emancipation, and at the same time to render service to others. As we improve, we can also help others to improve in our own humble way. As we do our spiritual practices, as we progress in our spiritual path, let us try to be of service to others. This is the twofold way which will help us to attain inner purity, which will help us to attain divine presence, divine love, and divine bliss. There is this great ideal before us, and let us proceed, each one in his own way, towards its attainment step by step. Let us be sure of every inch of the ground. Om Santi 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 Hari Om Tat Sat.